Howdy y'all, good morning, and welcome back to Dark Souls 2, Crown of the Old Ironing King. I mean, King, get some easy care clothes. Wrinkle-free, have you heard of it? Makes life so much easier. Who has time to iron nowadays? Apparently somebody at FromSoft has plenty of time to iron because they made DLC around the whole concept. It's ridiculous. No, I know what the name really means, it's fine. So for this installment, made a couple of changes. I put on the creepy mannequin mask, and trying out a different weapon. This is called the Warped Sword. The Warped Sword you get from beating off the Flexile Sentry and then taking its very essence and turning it into a weapon. Which, and has anyone ever questioned how that even works? When you talk to a blacksmith, you give him or her some materials, or, well, they typically have the materials themselves. You don't provide the materials to them, but they have materials that they work with. How do you expect them to react when you say, I want this warped sword, and you give them the essence of a person, or a demon, or something like that, or of a dark, because the game's called Dark Souls? No one's ever thought to question how weapons are forged from those souls? Quick moment to look at the creepy mask. I believe it was the mannequin mask that used to be in the prototype, or the beta, or just the concept art. It had this really, like, creepy thing. It had, you know, a tear tattoo on it, which, as you know, means that you killed a motherfucker. But then, in between the whole graphical downgrade thing, and then like, oh, torches, they don't work anymore as we'd intended, are bad. And then they had the graphical downgrade, the Dark Souls Gate it was called, I believe, at the time, that was hugely controversial, and then people forgot about it sometime later because they realized that they don't really care for dark mechanics anyway. Where do dark mechanics belong in a Dark Souls game? The nomenclature, it just doesn't make sense. I don't buy it. So this particular segment of the DLC, this part to me is kind of, it's a step back a little bit. It's a little less interesting, a little less exciting. Maybe if it's your first time playing through, it's a little intriguing since you don't know what's coming, which I suppose could be said of literally any video game ever that you're playing for the first time. Most games that you play for the first time, you don't know what you're going to get going into them, so it's, you know, it's new, it's like a new fling that you start with. I don't know where I'm going with this, but as a whole, I'm not too big of a fan of this area. It's a little on the tedious side. You have those cleric sorcerai. I do think it's neat that you can knock the fire horse head creatures, minotaurs, maybe? I don't know. And you can use those to your advantage a little bit. And I say a little bit because from what you've seen so far, they don't really help. By the by, here's our first kind of proper encounter with the, I will call it the Ashen Giant, because that's probably what it's known as. I don't think any of the enemies are actually called anything aside from the bosses. Does anything have a proper name in this game? I don't think it does. It's whatever the secret code names were the designers gave. And they don't share that information. Old From Bloatware doesn't like to share. Anyway, you go around this big room with a bunch of barrels in it. You see this wall. The wall may look kind of odd. It looks kind of fakey anyway, and there's a helpful message to remind me of it. So what you do is you track one of these barrel-toting motherfuckers and get them in front of where you want to go, and then you ignite that shit. Or if you have something else that's explosive, well, no, I don't think you can just lug a bomb at it, because I think the bomb needs something to ignite to do proper explosive damage. Or maybe like the big old bombs, maybe those do. I don't know. You know, you got your fire bombs. You got your black fire bombs. I don't know what's what. Who am I to say? So we got the Katarina. shit. Which, if you played Dark Souls Uno, you may remember coming from our good friend and memorable NPC Sigmire, the onion-totin', I don't want to say badass, but just, he was an onion-totin' fella. And very much onions. And you know, it's fitting that he wore onions, and when he died, I cried. I was like, who's chopping up onions? And then I was like, oh my god, it's Sigland. She's chopping up onions because she killed her dad. Remember? Like if you cut onions every time, guys. It's me pounding my chest and pouring out a 40 for Sigmire. May he R.I.P. whatever. And speaking of NPCs, I couldn't help but think just now, because I'm not very good at planning out what I'm saying in any given moment. This commentary is just so whimsical. The DLC, the delish in both the delicious do not have NPCs, I don't think, do they? I don't remember talking to anybody in the first one, and I don't remember talking to anybody in this one, because I'm looking at it, and all I'm talking to are scribblings in the ground. So, yeah. The DLC in Dark Souls 1 did have the, what was his name? Mad Hatter, smiling, kind of creepy dude. He sold you some shit in front of where Artorias was, and then, yeah, then right after that, he invades your ass. What's up with that? In the first delish, you had Jester Thomas invade your ass, literally, with fire. But you never talk to the guy unless you subscribe to the theory that Dragon and Covenant guy, as I learned from Karen during the stream of the first game, that perhaps he might possibly be that feller. But he himself, the feller, not his allegedly Jester-totin' counterpart, the feller is not in the DLC. So, I mean, it just really makes you think, man, doesn't it? Or am I just padding for time? Because, as I said, this part of the DLC, to me, it's kind of going on the down slope, just a little bit. Just a little bit. Now, this part, when I first played it, I thought was a bit interesting. You come into this hallway, this curvy hallway. It's dark. You see these crawling guys. It's weird. You have this torch that you want to light that thing, but when you light it, it's like covered in oil. Which sounds sexy, but it's a torch, so it just, you know, becomes fire. And that's not particularly sexy at that point. The only time when being on fire is sexy is when you have like a streak going on in basketball or something, which we all know from NBA Jam. But here, not so much. The enemies are a little unique. And this was what made the first playthrough a bit interesting. So I'll give it the benefit of the doubt and say that my first playthrough I was more interested and engaged at this point than I was right now. Yeah, we got Quicksword, Raquel. Call her Raquel. Like that. Sounds more like ye old than just Rachel. Rachel's too 2014 for my taste. Or too Final Fantasy VI. She like it. Cried when she died. Sorry, I just got lost for a second. But yeah, when you fight those big enemies, you don't know what they do, you don't know how the mechanics work. If you're being a proper gamer and playing it blind-like, not reading strat guides beforehand. But they don't light up at first unless you light them up for them with fire arrows, as I knew to do. Then they just kind of become bulky, tanky creatures who are slow, relatively simple, but time-consuming to dispatch. Or they have trap scenarios like that. Clever. But the quicker way to deal with them is not to just, you know, take your sword swipes at them until they die, but rather ignite them yourself or let them ignite whatever they want to do, and then they do that self-explosion attack. If you know it's coming, you roll out of the way, it's not too hard to dodge, and you're fine. But once you figure that out, because that's pretty much, aside from Quick Sword Rachel, that's really all there is in this part of the DLC, is just these guys. You have to deal with one, you open a door, you deal with two, and by the time you figure out how they work, it's like, well, okay. Kind of going through the motions now, I know what's going on. And it's just a little more on the tedious side than it needs to be. Now with the Warp Sword, which I've been using this whole time, and I got off on a bit of a solo commentary tangent, forgot to really address why I'm using it. It's fast. It's not particularly strong. It is a dex weapon, but it's fast. So say you're wearing the Stoned Ring, so like the Europera, if you use that, and it's just kind of, I like the fanciness of the attacks too. It seems so, I don't know, so proper. If I recollectioned correctly. Speaking of, what does that do? So it's like Dark Orb, but there's more than one Dark Orb that gets fired. Can you recollection that? And while we're here, here's these items that we got from the the Lightning Sorceress people. Who would worship Black Fog? I mean, it's just such a pollutant. Like, you worship it for a little while, but then you get COPD, and then, you know, you're like, why am I worshiping this thing that's giving me a terrible lung disease? That doesn't make sense. You know, Dark Souls, from your gameplay, it's alright, but your lore needs a little bit of work. Okay? FYI, those guys drop bonfire ascetics, and that message, to my knowledge, is a filthy damn liar. So that, I believe, if memory serves, will do it for this area. Except, one last part. And this last part I think is kind of neat, just for the tableau it creates in front of you. I'm okay with it, so let's calmly, lightly jog to it. Quick sprint for good measure, and see what we see when we look inside. I just like this. You know, there's no cutscenes, there's no lore, it's just this. You just get to kind of soak it in, and of course they literally have smoke coming out of their assholes, which kind of takes away from the moment to some extent, but it's fine. And then you can just make things go fucking crazy. You can take a more, as Master Pates says, a more cautious approach and flame one at a time and make things a little less risky. But if you just roll out of the way really quickly, it's fine. And then just like the Benny Hill-ness of them all coming on fire at the same time, and just everything is terrible all of a sudden. And it's great. But of course, you get a little impatient when they're all on fire. You want to take a few risks, so take a little swipe, hope it kills them, doesn't work. And then they mutually assured destruction, is what that was. It's beautiful. So we yanked a thing out of that thing, and now we can go the wrong way for a second, but then travel forward in time and go the right way. So what is this thing that we got? You may ask, or not, because you have already played this and are watching this. And why are you watching this if you have already played it? Because you are not getting a comprehensive strategy guide anymore, because you know. Why are you just watching something that you've already experienced before? Are you watching it because of the inner monologue that you probably had that I am saying right now? Because that's fair. Everything I'm saying right now, I can promise you, is exactly what every single person who played this for the first time also thought. And where are you going? You bastard. It happens to me on elevators all the time. Oh, excuse me, I need to go from the lobby to the, like, 14th floor where I'm staying. Oh, you're gonna light yourself on fire, and now it'd be weird if I joined you in the elevator? Is that what is that the story you're going with? Please. Come on. I travel every now and then. I know how it works. So now that I'm getting impatient, we just two-hand the warp sword, and I've got this elevator to myself. Yeah. Thank you. So this elevator serves as a quick detour to the beginning of this area. The DLC does a little bit more with shortcuts and looping the levels back around to where you started from when you have the thing you need to get to the next area, and voila! Boxes. Thank you for the nice job. And we're back. So that was that area. Victory feels kind of shallow. All I did was get a stick. A smoky stick. And had to go through a bunch of big, not leg-using dudes farting all over me to get it. I don't know how I feel about that. But, nonetheless, we did get a stick, and what our smoky stick does is it brings to life this, until now, quiet chamber. And I'll show you right about... Diabetus, it's still locked, man. Come on. It's not what the Scorching Iron Scepter does. Oh, I was carrying that scorching thing in my pants that whole time? That is a Scorcher. And voila! We have activated the big tower room, which makes all these lifts/elevators work now. And that opens the remainder of the DLC to us, so look forward to that coming up next time. Bye, y'all!